first of all, I do want to thank you for your time. And you're like a rock star to me. And your time is incredible that you've given me a few minutes. And I appreciate that so much.
Listen, and what I want to tell you is because I remember all the good times we had in homeroom, how could I say no?
Everybody, I went to high school with him. I'm like Joe Biden. I have the same memory of is like Joe Biden, right? And I don't remember much. Now, I was a bad kid, everybody, in high school. I personally was so mixed up on drugs that I had to drop out. And I actually took a general equivalency diploma.
Oh, wow, you did a GED. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was out before you guys. Like, before you officially got out, I think I had gotten the GED. But that didn't matter. I personally, Louie, was so lost when I look back at life in high school for me. But I remember only a few people, and you were one of them, just always being a great guy and being like a buddy in high school. And I appreciate our high school, time together.
Oh yeah, I know we had a lot of laughs. Sure.
Yeah, and what I remember now, I have, and he used to have like fucking Ozzy Osbourne hair, like down to his hair. He was a real rocker. We were fucking 16, 17. He had long fucking flowing hair. And now, Louie, the reason that I wanted to talk to you is because what you've accomplished in life is almost unbelievable and impressive and just great, and just something that anybody would bug out to know what you've accomplished, which is, everybody, is that not only did he do 20 years in the New York City Police Department, but then through hard work, I watched videos of this guy talking, you persevered. And you got a law license, and after the police, you have your own law business. Am I right, sir?
Yeah, we have a small law firm that consists of, let's see, three full-time attorneys, and then we probably have 6 of-counsel attorneys, and then 2 paralegals.
Wow, that's just unbelievable. So what I'd like to do is share with people your journey through life, and and leaving off, because literally after high school, me and you really didn't see each other anymore. Am I right?
You're right, and the idea about the GED is not surprising to me, because from what I recall, you and I never went. We sit outside and smoke doobs all day, and that's the truth, because I remember going to summer school at a different high school, and my poor mother, I'm first generation Italian American,
right? So
my mother never knew that she was getting the chronic absentee index cards that good old Christopher Columbus High School was sending, and I convinced her that I had a job as a custodian at Roosevelt High School across the street. And that's why I was going there every day. I was actually going there every day, so they didn't have, you had to go to summer school to get to the next grade then. I don't know about now, but then you did.
Right.
And she'd say to me, if you got a job as a custodian in Roosevelt High School, why do you always need money? I think she knew, but, suffice it to say that I eked my way through high school, and actually high school, the last year, I don't know if you remember going, when you get called down to the office, I forget the guy's name. He was a nice guy. He was an Italian guy. Mm-hmm. He was an assistant principal. He seemed very understanding of troubled youth like you and me.
Right.
And he said, look, I got one last shot for you. We have a program. It's called co-op. Co-op means you work a week, you go to school a week, you're going to get you a job in a warehouse, you work every day for a week,
right.
You come back, go to school for a week.
Right.
If you make it, you'll graduate. If you don't, then, be well. So I did. I went to work in a warehouse, and this is really going to date us, Glen. It was a high-end department store called O for Orbacks.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Wait, it was what was it called, sir?
Orbacks.
Orbacks, okay.
So Orbacks was kind of like a Lord and Taylor kind of thing. And the way it worked was I basically worked on an assembly line and I packed boxes for distribution to different stores throughout the tri-state area. You punched a card every day. You got searched on the way out because you were in retail goods. You could have stole stuff.
Right.
And P.S. I learned after a week that this is not going to be an easy way to live. And after being there for 6 months, I said, holy shit, I can't believe it. I'm looking forward to going back to school because these poor bastards, this is it.
Right.
This is it, man,
Right.
So that taught me a valuable lesson. I didn't want to be punching a clock and working for minimum wage for the rest of my life. So that inspired me to do, to go to high school and finish high school. And not long after that, my dearly departed dad, he was always of the mindset, take every civil service job test you can. I'll pay for it. I want you to take the test for the bus driver, for sanitation. Anyway, I took the test for the cops. The cops called me first, so I went.
Right. And you were pretty young at this point. You were about... Now, I did watch... You suggested I watch a couple of videos that you had done, and I enjoyed watching them because I learned a lot about you. So, first of all, that when you actually were in the academy, you were how old? 21?
20.
Huh?
20.
Yeah. That's extremely young, isn't it, for then and now? Isn't that really young?
Yeah, I don't think they allow that anymore. I think now the minimum age is 22 or 23. So I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Right.
Because as a 20-year-old with a gun and shield,
right.
I did some really crazy shit back then.
Right.
And I'm glad I'm here to tell the tale, but a 20-year-old tends to think he or she is invincible and will get themselves into some dangerous situations rather quickly.
Right.
So I was blessed. I was lucky.
Right.
And, nothing ever happened to me. So.
Right. Okay, you're 21. Now, you did tell a humorous story. Is that you told the story where you had long hair. I knew you as the rocker. You had long hair.
Oh,
You go to the academy, and the guy, this old school guy, he singles you out. He's telling everybody they got to get haircuts, but you're going to get your haircut tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well, I don't know if I told this part of the story, but my mother and father hated the fact that I had this like long rock and roll hair.
Right.
And I thought for sure we were going to get a record deal, and we came close. I mean, I'll share pictures of you with you of us in front of CBGBs and on marquees with different bands who ultimately made it.
Right.
We didn't, but at the time I was convinced we were going to. So I wasn't going to cut my hair. So my dad back then, this is 1981, 82, he said to me, listen, please get a haircut. I'll give you $2,000.
Right.
Now in 1981, 82, $2,000 is real money.
A lot of money.
I don't know what it would be worth today, but it was a significant sum.
Right.
And being the proud, stubborn Italian I was, I said, no, Dad, that's all right. I'm going to make my own money. He said, okay, fine. When the thing happened with the lieutenant, when I went to, I showed up to get sworn into the police academy. I looked like I was on, an MTV rock show.
Right.
I showed up with a long coat, I had long hair. They're like, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, can you get sworn in? They're like, and this guy goes to me, this ain't no rock concert. It's the police department. What you doing here? He's like, all right, take seat 21. And that's when the lieutenant found me, and that's when he said, look, everybody's got till Friday. You come back tomorrow with a haircut or you're out. And so Dad had to call his friend Giuseppe the barber from the neighborhood. And by the way, no 2000. That was out.
Right. You had it. Right.
He gave me like a Marine kind of haircut.
Right.
And, I showed up the next day, and the guys behind me didn't even recognize me.
Your fucking life changed from that day, bro. Really, if you think about it, that fucking day. So, okay. So now you're a cop. You're fucking 20, 21 years old. Very, very young. Today, you're not even can't even be a cop. So, and you're in the streets of the Bronx, sir? Were you in the Bronx?
Yeah. So I was assigned to the Bronx. Well, I'm going to give you a little piece of nostalgia that you may or may not remember. You remember that we had a cop assigned to Columbus High School that used to chase the truants around? Remember that guy?
Yes.
Okay. His name was Henry Mangone.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Now, the reason I know this so clearly is because my first command out of the police academy, they give you all these new uniforms and you show up with a black bag and you got all this shit that you bring in there with you. And you're supposed to report to the desk officer, which if you've ever gone to a New York City police station, there's like a high desk.
Right.
There's a desk sergeant, a desk officer sits back there. And he's kind of like, he looks like a judge, right? So I look up and who is it but Henry Mangone?
Oh my God.
And now he's a sergeant.
Wow.
A little older, he's a little fatter, he's a little grayer, but it's him.
Wow.
Like, oh shit. And he goes, so he's got these little half glasses like this, right? He looks up, he's like, yeah. I said, probationary police officer LaPietro reporting for duty, sir. He looks up, he goes, wait a minute. He goes, did you go to Columbus High School? I was like, yeah. He goes, did you have long hair? I said, yeah. He goes, you gotta be fucking shitting me, kid. He goes, I got my eye on you, kid.
Oh.
Right? So he, it was fine. I mean, he followed me around for a couple of months, but then he realized that I wasn't the same crazy kid.
Right.
Then we were fine. You know?
Right.
You talk about a small world, right?
You fucking have to mature fast. Like, seriously, bro, because now, it's violent now. You know what's going on. We can get to that later, but I'm just saying, back in the 80s, wasn't that when crack was being introduced into the world? So now...
Crack and rap. Both.
Okay. So you, here's a question, because I was trying to formulate questions. You're a cop, you're 21 now, or 20, and at some point you have to go to somebody who's dead. The first time. Somebody who's dead. They died in their house, they got shot, whatever. Tell me about that time, the first time a young Louie goes to somebody who's dead and you got to take care of things.
It's called the DOA job.
Okay.
So they always send the rookies to that. So when there's a dead human body, at least this was the procedure. You know, geez, we're going back 40 years now.
Right.
I think it's the same story.
Right.
When there's a dead body in New York, until the medical examiner comes, if the person is of age and they were sick and they have a doctor's certificate, then typically the city will release the body to a funeral home, a licensed funeral director.
Okay.
If not, then you have to wait for the medical examiner. If they're a John Doe, or if they died in unusual circumstances, or they were under a certain age, you have to wait for the ME. And while you wait for the ME, somebody's got to guard the body. The ME takes, 3 days.
Right.
Sometimes. So, I don't know if I told a story about when the guy was on the couch and it smelled really bad. And at one point, they didn't tell me that rigor mortis can set in the first few hours, and the guy was dead on the couch, and at one point he got up.
No.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand. How could he get up if he's dead? How could that happen?
The body, it's kind of like the chicken without a head, like there's still, I guess, some kind of reaction physiologically that happens where like things can move, like an arm can go flying.
Like a snake. If you cut a snake in half, it's still going to wiggle like that. So wait, you're in the, I don't understand. You're like guarding the body. You're in the house. It's just you and the dead person, or there's other people there?
No. If there's other people there, typically they're there with you, and it's not an ME case. When they die alone, it's an ME case. So It's just you and him, or you and her. So
were you cool with that? Like, had you being a cop settled in enough that it was this like war, like this is part of what your job was, like, or were you phased where you went home and told somebody like, oh man, the first?
No, well, in the police academy, they made you go and watch an autopsy, and once you saw that, everything else was like gravy.
Okay.
They took you to the medical examiner's office, and they're cutting people open, and they're opening up their rib cages, and it looks, we look like a side of beef on the inside.
Right.
And then they're stitching people up with these giant, ugly Y baseball type stitches after they, it's not very cosmetic.
Right.
We saw what was called as a floater,
right.
floaters are people who wash up in the spring who jump into the Eastern Hudson River,
Right.
fill up with gases, and then eventually they float to the top. And they're the same green. If Herman Munster were in color, that's the color of the float.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So, okay, so that's kind of you go see Autopsies, so you're already kind of hard into that. Now you go to see your first thing. Now, this person might have died, it sounds like natural causes. Where was the first time that you went to where somebody got murdered, where you're the first guy or, on the scene? This is probably before you were a sergeant.
Oh, yeah, no, well before I was a sergeant.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a lot of stuff when I was a sergeant, but
Right.
as a sergeant, I mean, I remember responding to a guy who was shot in the South Bronx, coming out of a nightclub. He was shot twice in the abdomen, and we tried to put something on his abdomen to try to
Stop.
to try to quell and stem the bleeding until the nurse got there, and we did, but he died. He was dying when we got there.
Oh, okay. So now you're is every day the Bronx, like I said, was violent. Were you in the South Bronx or were you in North Bronx precincts?
So I was in the South Bronx, which was essentially the old Fort Apache, 41st precinct and the 43rd precinct. Once in a while in the summer, they'd send the rookies to do traffic detail on City Island on Friday nights. It would get really busy, so they'd make us, like control traffic in the middle of the street, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I noticed there are cops that are part of the Hollywood unit. When they're filming a movie, they do have a cop car there and a cop directing stuff. How does somebody get that job? Is that like, who do you know? Like, how does somebody get to be a cop doing that?
I don't know. I never did that. That's called the movie and TV unit.
Oh, good.
It's a specialized unit. I'm sure it doesn't hurt if your uncle was a chief or something like that.
Right.
But I guess like anything else, you apply. I didn't have anybody in the police department. I didn't have a single, what they call a rabbi or a hook. I didn't have any of that. Right. And I had unbelievable jobs. I applied for stuff, and I didn't always get it, but most times I did.
What was like the most fun? Because you're a cop, you're getting paid very well. When you look back at it?
Hold on, I don't know about getting paid very well. I don't know how you define very well, but I could tell you, back then I think I was making about $21,000 a year.
But isn't it what they call the bennies? It's the benefits, it's the pension. Isn't that what it's all about?
Yeah, it is. So the medical and the pension, I did 20 years. Technically, I did 18.
Right.
I got paid for 20 because my last 2 I worked in the mayor's office as a lawyer. So the benefits are there for life. The pension, my pension's been the same. I've been collecting it now for, more than 20 years. I mean, I definitely have more time as a lawyer than I did as a cop.
Right.
So it's okay. I mean, if you hang around long enough and you rise through the ranks, you can have a really nice pension.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've given up your whole life,
Yeah, I mean, in today's climate, really being a cop, that would be the only reason that you're going to get all these benefits. Because right now, and we can talk about it in a few minutes, but things have changed as far as people's attitudes. The George Floyd, when I saw your video, that was George Floyd just had happened. And things have changed dramatically about people wanting to be cops and what they're going to have to go through if they are a cop. Am I right?
Yeah, they're not getting anybody. There's a crisis. There's a crisis of attrition. There's a crisis in the ranks. There's a crisis. They can't get anybody. Nobody wants to be a cop. My kid he's in the Navy. He just left active duty military and became a project manager for a software company.
Great.
I mean, I represent captain through chief. I have all the big guys. Mm-hmm. So suffice it to say that if I want to help somebody get a nice little job in the police department, I'm in a good position to do that.
Yeah.
My kid would be like royalty in the police department.
Right.
And he wouldn't go near it, and I don't blame him.
Right.
He wouldn't go near it, not for all the tea in China.
Right. Well,
there are laws out there now that essentially criminalize police tactics. So if there's a law unique to New York City. The law is called a diaphragm bill. If a police officer is wrestling with somebody and they inadvertently compress the person's diaphragm, and I'm not sure what that is.
Right.
I'm not a doctor. Right. Most cops aren't. Then even if the person isn't hurt, and even if the cop had no intention of compressing the diaphragm, the cop herself is subject to criminal charges.
Wow.
So if you're a cop, why would you even engage anybody in any confrontation? Right. You'd be like, you know what? I'm just gonna hang back and I'll go take a report later.
Wow.
Yeah, and the public doesn't know about it. The public is blissfully unaware about this stuff, to the point. Now I'm in Westchester County right now, right?
Yeah.
There was, when this law came out, the Westchester County Police and the Nassau County Police, who are the bordering jurisdictions to New York City, issued basically bulletins and advisories to their police saying, if you're pursuing a violent felon, once you cross into New York City, terminate the pursuit.
Wow.
You don't have to get arrested.
Wow.
That's untwisted.
That's incredible. But I want to back up a little, Lou. So you're a young guy, you're a cop but you're in a very violent area. The Fort Apache, they made a movie about it, so how bad it was. And you're dealing with, what would you say that when you were young and most of the things was it robberies, or was it just an assortment of different things that you were being called to? Is domestic a big deal where everybody's getting drunk and they're hitting each other? Like, what was your...
All of the above.
Okay.
All of it. All of it. I mean, street robberies were very common.
Right.
You know, somebody pull a gun on you and take your chain.
Right.
That was back when the 8-ball jackets, remember the 8-ball jackets?
No, what is that?
So it was a leather jacket with a picture of an 8-ball on the back of it. There, I think there's a Seinfeld episode with one on it.
Okay.
And, you know, they'd kill you for that jacket.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're now, you know what I see sometimes when I watch the TV show Cops is, you know, whether they're bullshitting when they're riding, they're talking to the guy, but they all say that they enjoy that every day it's something different. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the same thing. You don't know what the fuck is going to happen today that when you go to work. Did you like that? Was that now as a young guy getting into it? Were you into that?
So I can tell you that being a New York City cop is basically having front row seats to the greatest show on earth. Right. You can't begin to imagine what you'll see. You can't be, because there's just, you know, truth is often stranger than fiction.
Right. Now, at the same time that you're a young cop, you also, from watching your video, I think not only get married, but you knew your wife about the time or before that you went into the academy, right? Your wife?
No. I met my wife, I was already a cop.
Okay.
I was playing, I got myself into a job where I had weekends off. I was like the old Bumper Morgan, like walking a foot post. In exchange for, if you were willing to walk a foot post, then they gave you weekends off. I wanted weekends off because I moonlighted as a musician playing Italian weddings. And I met my wife in a bar in like 1985.
So you're a young guy, but you met her when you were playing music. You were a musician when you picked your wife up.
I still am.
I know.
That's one thing that's never changed. I've been a cop. I've been a sergeant. I became counsel to two mayors. I was an adjunct professor at John Jay College for 11 years.
Wow.
I'm a business owner. I own another business besides this one, a real estate business. But the one constant that's never left me is a musician. I still do it.
I know that. You literally, throughout your whole life, have been a working musician, not a Led Zeppelin kind of musician, but have made money. And I heard what you said, when you look back at it, because you're still playing. And now, what I noticed about people that are wealthy and that rich, maybe don't have to work, and maybe I'm talking about you, is that if they love something, they do it. And you don't have to be playing in the band. I'm sure you could be doing other things, but you love it, right? Even now, right? When you're busy life?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. People who know me in the musician life, when they find out, that I'm a lawyer, they're like, oh, you're a lawyer? I thought you did this full time. I said, I've been working on doing this full time for 45 years. It hasn't quite panned out for me.
Right. Give me my favorite band when I definitely knew you, because when I was like 15, 16 was Aerosmith. But give me when you were a teenager, give me your top three that you loved, that, you idolized.
So when we were together, I would say Aerosmith, Zeppelin, and Black Sabbath.
And Sabbath. Yeah, I knew you liked Sabbath, right? Yeah. I got to meet, groupie-wise, Tyler a couple of times, So it was almost deflating.
Yeah, I got to meet Jeff Beck.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Early Jeff, because didn't he just play like the Capitol Theater?
Yeah, I was there. He played with Johnny Depp.
Right.
Johnny Depp was terrible. But Johnny Depp, I'm sure he wanted to do his rock fantasy thing.
Right.
But I've seen Beck, probably half a dozen times.
Right.
And his band is great. He's great. But Johnny Depp, okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, look, Johnny Depp. But
I think it's a whole bunch of like they're super rich, super famous, and they connect on that level too. Let's play together and have fun. People that type. So okay, going back, I want to go back. So you're also getting married now. You're a young guy. What age do you? Why do you take the sergeant's test? And now I see your academics coming into it. You're taking tests. You want to further. You're a young guy. You're married at the time when you took the sergeant's test.
Well, I'll tell you, it's all it goes hand in glove. So the sergeant's test, what happened was, I become a cop. I hated school, right? Just like you, hated it. I remember being really happy. I didn't have to go to school anymore. I was a cop. I had a job, and I remember that I worked at one point in the 49th precinct. 49th precinct in the Bronx was actually a nice neighborhood. And it was great because, there was plenty of young women around, and you were a young single cop, and my partner was single, we were having a great time.
Yeah.
There was an old timer who was retiring, who was very well respected among the cops. And he had a rack of medals. If you have medals, right, it means like you've done all these great things. He had a big rack of medals. An older guy, and he was aging out. So he was going to retire. We went to his retirement party. This guy was a legend. His name was Red.
Right.
So he retires, and about, I don't know, maybe 10 months later, I am, Cross County Shopping Center?
Yes.
Years ago, there was something, I go in with my then girlfriend, now wife, into learner shops. Remember learner shops?
Yes, yes.
So when you go into learner shops, or you go into another shop, if you had a bag with you, they'd give you a little piece of wood with a number on it, and they put your bag in a cubby so you wouldn't shoplift.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So who's giving out the little pieces of wood with the number for the cubby but Red?
Oh.
I see Red. I go, Red, what's up? What are you doing? He goes, I'm doing this. I'm like, really? Like, I'm saying to myself, this guy was a legend. He's doing this?
Right.
Because, I don't have college. He goes, nobody will give me a job.
Wow.
And I never forgot that.
Wow.
So that inspired me to go. Well, we graduated in the class of 80, you and I.
Okay.
For high school.
Okay. I was, we've been 18 in 1980. We're the same age, right?
Yeah, 1980 was the class that we graduated from.
Right.
It took me till 1991 to get a bachelor's degree. I had to take all kinds of part-time remedial courses. I never took algebra in high school, and geometry and trig and calculus. I had to do it for no credit.
Right.
And part-time, summers, nights, weekends, this, that. It took me, I think I went back in let's say 85, 86.
Mm-hmm.
But I busted my ass until I got my bachelor's degree.
Right.
And I still have it on my wall. It's right here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm graduating with honors, and I hated school.
Right. Right.
You know, but that little story about Red, and you know,
it made you think about life. You had got a family, and you're young. You want to make money. You're smart. You know, you want to make money, and the paths and look what happened to him when he retired. He's doing this, even though
I said that's me. That's going to be me. I that's not for me. I don't want to do that.
Right? No, you busted your. That's what's so impressive about you, man. Like you literally. That's why I'm taking people through your journey of your life, how it all started. And when your realization, the conversation with Red, that's what I'm gonna, do better. So now you become a sergeant, and what changes in your world as far as what your duties are? Because you're with people, training them, or you have to be the first one on a major scene. How does
you're the supervisor, so you're like you're the patrol supervisor. So whatever happens on the patrol, any heavy jobs, you have to go. Right. A sergeant gets a driver assigned to him or her.
Excellent.
A sergeant has to do preliminary investigations, has to do more reports, has to basically, I don't know if you remember Hill Street Blues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's be careful out there, guy. You stand in front of a podium.
Right.
The troops line up and you inspect them. Is your uniform good? Is this, that?
Right.
So, I was a patrol sergeant for quite a while.
Uh-huh.
Before I became a sergeant, I had been in Mayor Koch's security detail. I was a bodyguard for Mayor Koch.
Excellent.
And from that job, somebody in that unit knew somebody who was in the operations unit in headquarters and said, I need somebody who, we need a sergeant down in the operations unit.
Yeah.
To do, to do this special detail.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought of me and they called me, and I wound up taking that job. And then, so I was a sergeant in the 2-6 and 2-8, both Harlem.
Okay.
2-8 first, and then the 2-6, which is, they call it the hole in the donut because it's Columbia University. It's surrounded by high crime, but the middle of the donut is like this, collegiate little town.
Right.
And that's when I wound up downtown, and from downtown, I never left. I basically spent,
right.
And I have to admit, I spent half my career in the building, but they wanted somebody who could write well.
Right.
I had been published in college,
mm-hmm.
writer, so they
wow.
needed somebody that could write well, and then I wound up in that framework and operations and something called emergency management. I have an old New York magazine. They did an article on me and my partner because we were writing the then New York City hurricane evacuation plans, stuff
mm-hmm.
like that. So.
Now, did you ever meet Serpacro? And I know you've seen the movie and you know of him. Did you ever meet him?
I never met him. I met the author of the book, who my dad happened to do cabinetry work for, and I have an autographed copy of his book. But that's about as close as I've got.
Right. That's great. Here's another question. I am obsessed with one TV show more than any show. It's the best show. It's been on for 20 years. It's on A&E, and it's called The First 48. Do you ever watch that, First 48 Hours?
I've never seen it. I watch very few cop. I've never seen Law and Order. I've had clients who've been the subject of Law and Order episodes.
Wow.
But I've never seen it. The only thing I saw recently, and I thought it was great, was The Wire on HBO. But it's an old show, 20 years old.
I heard about that. Would you say in your life, in the busy life that you lead, you're working, you have a family, you have kids, you have a wife, friends and family, and you're into music? That's a big, kind of relaxation type of thing. So, do you watch any TV at all, or is it maybe like?
No, my wife and I we binge all kinds of stuff. We're in the middle of, I think we watch something called Echo 3 on Apple TV right now.
It's good.
It's very good. It's about this an unsanctioned rescue operation from these special forces guys, whose sister gets kidnapped because it turns out she's in the CIA, and they're down in Venezuela, and it's pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah, no, that's cool. You know, I'm telling you, and not only is that my favorite show, the first 48 hours, and what it's about is they follow detectives. It's not CSI, all that make-believe they talk about. This is real, how when somebody dies in New York and the detectives go, the film crew takes you with them and they show you how they piece it together and how they get the right people, and then the interrogation room. And what's interesting, I heard you say, you're a brilliant guy, bro. One of the things, so many people have gotten convicted because all they had to say was, I want a lawyer. You know what I mean? They needed them to admit to what, and they broke them down. They're good. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
They need it. And it's interesting, but, you know, you do, listen, Lou, you know, if somebody's fucked up and commits a murder, they should be caught. They should be punished. You know.
Well, I mean, I have to tell you, so my practice is defense, and it's criminal defense, but I don't really represent career criminals at all.
Right.
I represent mostly 90% cops and their families.
Right.
People who get into stupid shit. You know, typically people who don't have a criminal record.
Right.
I mean, I can't even count on one hand, you know, career criminals I've represented.
Right.
But sometimes somebody could be wrongly charged. I have a guy, my next trial is with a 63-year-old man who gets into a fist fight with another 63-year-old man who says, you know, the other guy hit him first, you know, and the guy's never been arrested in his life. Right. So I have a lot of cases involving the police department internally where they bring people up on charges.
Right.
You know, and I'm proud to say I have a very good record because they bring a lot of bullshit charges. I have a case coming up right now where they're bringing the guy up on charges because the guy is stopped. There's a motorist that stopped,
right.
And my client said, you know, and the motorist, instead of complying, he says, how much you want to bet you don't find nothing? How much you want to, and he keeps saying he wants to bet the cop, and the cop says, listen, you sound nuts right now, bro.
What?
Because he said you sound nuts right now, the CCRB has charged him with disrespectful language based on perceived disability. It's absurd.
But you mean this guy went and made a complaint? That's why this has all happened.
Well, he made a complaint, but now they've probably spent $20,000 to bring it to bear in an administrative trial.
Well, that's amazing. I would think that
because the guy said, "Come on, you sound nuts. You sound nuts right now, bro."
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
They want to take 30 vacation days from him.
Right. When a cop, whether they're captain, sergeant, when they need a lawyer, where it's just some cop, I think sometimes the PBF, if the cop like killed a lot of people, maybe they wouldn't take the case, but. Do they assign them like your company where they could come to you?
I only have captain. I have captain through chief. That's who
okay.
That's my contract. I represent the CEA, which is the Captains Endowment Association.
Right, right. No, you're just an impressive guy. Listen, Louie, I Googled it. There's only been a couple of thousand people here in America out of 330 million people that have done what you've achieved, that you were a cop, that you were a lawyer. That's so impressive, man. Really, like, hats off to you, man. And your hard work.
I try to maintain the cutting edge of mediocrity at all points.
So you met, all right, so you met the politicians of New York. So you met Mayor Koch, you were his bodyguard. In real life, he was cool or he was goofy? What was kind of when you heard him talking?
He was quiet.
Mm-hmm.
He kept to himself. He was very cordial. He was a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing bad to say. I worked for him. I worked for Giuliani. Giuliani was a really, really egomaniacal kind of it's my way or the highway kind of guy.
Wow.
Then when Bloomberg replaced him, I was taken aback because Bloomberg was the total opposite. Bloomberg, you know, we'd sit around a conference table. Bloomberg would say, well, you know, what do you think, Lou?
Wow.
And the first time he asked me that, I kind of looked around. Because the other guy would be like, listen, and he wouldn't even talk to me. He'd only talk to my boss.
Wow, wow.
I was one guy removed. I worked for a guy named Steve, who was the mayor's criminal justice coordinator. So we oversaw police, fire, corrections, the courts, the DAs. But he would say, Steve, this is what you're going to make happen.
Right.
It wasn't like, Steve, what do you think? It was like, Steve, this is what you're going to do.
Oh.
Whereas Bloomberg was like, my boss on the Bloomberg was a guy named John.
Uh-huh.
Hey, John and Lou, what do you think? You know,
right.
So it's very, very different.
That's probably better, asking you your input as police. Like, what do you think on whatever you're talking about?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so okay. So here, let me just try to think. You said 83. You became a police officer. What year?
83.
So 20 years is 2000. So okay, let's jump to 2001. You're still on the force. You're an attorney now, but 9/11 happens. Where were you? What was your role in everything? And people.
So at that point, I was in the mayor's office.
Yep.
I responded down.
Right.
Because I was in the mayor's office, I was in a physical different building. I ran into police headquarters, and they were like, "No," it was kind of like shitty. They were like, "No, just go back to the mayor's office and see what you could do for them."
Right.
So I wound up dealing with all the politicians, and I kind of hated it. I had a harbor launch assigned to me, a boat, like a harbor boat.
Wow.
And we were stationed at Pier 90 something up on let's call it 56th Street and 12th Avenue.
Okay.
And we had a big command center there.
Oh.
And when Bill Clinton came and all these other people came, it was my job to get them on the harbor launch. We'd go down,
right,
dock in Battery Park, and then walk onto the site. But I kind of hated that job because I really felt like I wasn't doing much for being a tour guide.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody would have had a bit of side at these jobs. By the way, I just know your prominence in this world now, and I can see that you were at least close with Clinton. Have you talked to any president? Have you ever where you actually talked to them? Certainly, you were near Clinton. You saw him. He was on the boat with you. But were any president?
Hillary Clinton was once in charge of appropriations. I remember going down to Washington to meet with her, trying to get money for New York City for some crime initiatives.
Oh, okay.
So, I met her once, had a 2-hour meeting. I doubt very much she was in it. Plus, I had hair then, so I have no idea why.
It's funny on many different issues that you touch on. I just want to say, I'm not going to get into the whole thing with politics. Is like you've seen that, okay, Giuliani, he was Mr. New York mayor, and he did do good things, right?
He did great things.
Yeah, but when you look at him now, that he's the chief defender of Trump, it's unbelievable, right? Am I right?
He's lost his mind.
Right.
There's something I've recorded that I've been meaning to go watch. This CNN special called "What Happened to America's Mayor." I've DVR'd it.
Me too. I didn't watch it yet. You watched it yet? I didn't watch it yet.
No, I want to check it out. I really do.
Yeah. Okay. So, and also the present mayor, you started at the same time that he did. So, did you ever, the present mayor now, have you met him?
So, I haven't met him, but interestingly enough, he's one of my clients because he's a retired captain. So, I have active and retired captains. So if he calls my office and says, "Hey, I want you guys to do my last will and testament," I got to do it.
That's excellent. That's cool, man. That is just so cool. Yeah. Well, out of the mayors, though, and I just say on a human level, was it Bloomberg that was your favorite? Because you were close with all of them, it seems, starting with Koch.
Yeah. Well, Bloomberg, I was with him only in the first year of his first term. He wound up doing 3 terms.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I felt about him in his final term.
Mm-hmm.
Started getting a little too controlling.
Right.
But he was great. For a guy who, I don't know about now, but back then he had like Bezos kind of stature and money, right?
Right.
He was a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
Humble as the day is long, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what, man? I'm
Easy
gonna.
to talk to. I mean, not not at all.
That's good to know. The only thing I was angry with him, I'm not somebody that wants anybody to be the king, and you know what he did. He overturned the laws. He got it changed. He also bought the election. He spent all his money.
Yeah.
I don't like that. But then when he tried to change it, which he did, and that he was able to get a third term, and only under him it was going to be good. So,
Yeah.
but I guess we did prosper as mayor. When you look back at the mayors that have been the mayor, was Dickens the worst as far as letting lawlessness and craziness go on, or?
Well, I think Dickens took the biggest hit because things fester from previous administrations.
Okay.
So I think that was in the making, kind of like now. You're not going to turn this trend around now, probably for an entire generation. If you think about it, right, like when for New York City to elect a Republican mayor back in the late 90s,
right,
as in Giuliani becoming mayor, right?
Right.
That means New Yorkers actually voted for a Republican. The world is upside down when New York votes for a Republican.
Right.
That's how bad it had gotten.
Right.
So Giuliani comes in, and he's got Bratton, and he does 8 years of like really strict law enforcement.
Right.
Followed up by another 12 years of Bloomberg following that same thing. But then the axis tilts because the Bloomberg administration got jammed up for the unlawful stop and frisk.
Right.
And then, we went the other way completely.
Right.
So Deblassio comes in for 8 years and basically decimates any kind of law enforcement program that actually worked and increased quality of life in New York. So now this guy comes along, and as try as he might, and he talks a good game, but he's at the mercy of the New York State Senate and the Assembly, and the powers that be who want bail reform, and they want they don't want enforcement of low-level crimes, and so it's going to be a long time before that's fixed.
I know. From what I've lived here in New York City. I think you don't live here in New York City anymore, but I do, and I seen it on Deblassio, and he really was the stupid as fuck that he was for defunding the police. That's insane. We need more cops. It's fucking dangerous. You can't go walking around the streets of the South Bronx and everything la-di-da. There's certain areas, not just South Bronx, but all over where it's super dangerous. You need more. Defunding it is unbelievable. I mean, wouldn't you agree, kind of?
Well, I mean, that's fine. You want to defund the police. I have a bumper sticker. Actually, I just traded that car in. It said, you don't want, you want to defund the police? Okay, so good luck. Let me know how it goes for you. Call 911. Nobody's going to come. Let me know how that works out.
I know. And the people that commit the murders, when they get shot by somebody, who comes to help them? The cops. You know what I mean? Who else to the hospital? Here's another thing. For some reason, I don't understand. I'm not in the police department. I'm just like somebody watching the news. How is it possible that they would close Rikers and now bring all the criminals to the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens? Am I missing something, Lou? Because everybody seems to be aboard that idea. It doesn't make sense.
Well, it's all well and good until it's your house.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's see what they say. It's funny. I actually got to get going pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you go.
I kind of want to leave you with this thought.
Yeah.
I always had a theory. How do you turn a liberal into a conservative?
I don't know.
You mug them.
That's probably how it goes.
Conversely, how do you turn a conservative into a liberal?
I don't know.
Arrest him.
I got you.
It all depends on where you're at and what you're feeling and seeing, because everything is a great theory until it hits home.
Right.
Until you're the one who has, a jail on his or her block. You might not be so crazy about the idea then.
Yeah, it's really funny what's going on Billionaires Row, that they want to put all the homeless houses next to the richest, people in the whole world.
Yeah.
Listen, you're just a wonderful guy. I've taken a lot of your time, and I hope there's a part two one day, down the road. And I just thank you so much for your time. You're so interesting. It's so incredible to have known you, and what you've achieved is really stunning. And you worked hard, though. That's what I love about your story too. This shows you what hard work does, because you had a family, you're going to school. You were talking about busting your ass, right? Your wife was giving birth. You're looking at your law book store,
Yeah.
your thing, right? And how hard you worked to achieve. And even now, because I know you probably could just go to Florida and play a lot of golf or whatever, that type of thing. But you're into it. You like work and you're enjoying this. You said you get into your... I remember when you were talking about doing the interview with me, you said, listen, when I got caught, I'm busy, I'm focused, like I don't have time for that. So you did a great things in life, man. I'm so proud of you that I knew you.
It's funny, I said to somebody I was coming on here, and they said, well, why? And I said, well, my friend said you've led an interesting life. And I said, well, does that mean it's done? Am I gonna,
No.
do you know something I don't?
No.
No, but your words are very kind, and I'm very touched by your words.
Thank you.
I thank you, and I hope this thing of yours takes off.